Well, potential changes to Indiana high school graduation requirements have made plenty of headlines lately, including recommendations to change testing in order to earn a diploma. Just last week, the Richard M. Fairbanks Foundation released a report it sponsored on what Indiana high school students need to not only graduate, but succeed beyond graduation. And I'm pleased now to welcome back Fairbanks Foundation President and CEO Claire Fiddian-Green to talk about this really important report. And Claire, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Gary.
Okay, the good news certainly is graduation rates in the state continue to go in the right direction. They're improving, right?
That's right. In 2015, Indiana actually led the country with the highest graduation rate according to federal data, and we had the smallest gap between low-income and non-low-income students. So that's great news, and it's really the credit of students, teachers, and principals everywhere.
As you look at the numbers, the graduation numbers, could they be skewed a little bit when you look at waivers and homeschool numbers here in Indiana?
Yeah, those were some of the findings in the report. In fact, the state reported graduation rate differentiates between the waiver and non-waiver graduation rate, and that's actually a 6% difference. That's pretty significant, and that matters when at the federal level they're not looking at the waiver diploma rate and say that that's going to be acceptable under the new federal requirements.
Right. Well, this report, Closing the Graduation Gap, again, just released. Talk about some of the really, in your view, the important takeaways, because I think one of the things was looking at improving, continuing to improve these graduation rates, so focusing on the student in high school, but also with an eye beyond high school as well, right?
That's right. So the good news is we've made great strides over the past 15 years, but there's more work to do. And so we have some of these gaps to close and heightened expectations at the federal and state level about what students need to demonstrate in order to graduate. And we've been hearing a lot about connecting what's happening in the classroom with what's happening with the demands of companies and industries here in Indiana. So that means making it relevant, the coursework in high school, to what is going to actually be like when you're in the workplace. So that could be through apprenticeships, through more rigorous career and technical education programs offered in the high school setting.
Yeah, how will this push for more rigor in the classroom throughout the state? How will that affect this whole scenario?
Yeah, if we all focus more on rigor, then I think you're going to see good results for all students, regardless of their background and their circumstances. And in fact, this report highlights some great things that are happening around the state. For example, at the Fort Wayne Community Schools in Allen County, you see a heavy focus on early warning indicators like high rates of absenteeism, making sure that you identify those students who are at risk, not showing up in school, get them back in school, get them back on track.
So really looking at data, analytics to maybe set off some warning bells.
That's right, looking at data, and then if you look at Warren Township here closer to home, they're doing some wonderful things with career and technical education program and connecting what's happening for students in the high school classroom with what it's going to be like when they actually have a career. So making the education more relevant, making it more rigorous, making it meet the requirements of employers today.
How do you sense, there's not one size fits all, I guess, but as you look at school districts and systems around the state, their acceptance of these recommendations and suggestions, kind of this new way of looking at things?
I think that schools and principals and teachers recognize that we need to continue to raise expectations because we live in a global economy, and that's just the reality. We have states competing for multinational companies, those companies competing for global talent, so it's up to us to prepare our students to be successful in the 21st century. So I think that you've seen schools step up, and I think they're going to continue to step up and meet these higher expectations.
What, as we wrap up here, what in your view is the risk of not doing these things, of not really embracing some of these changes? We talk about a lot about the talent pipeline and the need for education beyond high school. What's the risk at not really focusing on these things?
Yeah, the number one issue you hear companies talking about is an inability to find sufficient talent. You hear that in the STEM fields in particular. So we really have to do everything we can to make sure we're preparing kids in our K-12 system so that all Hoosiers are successful in 21st century jobs and they can earn high-wage, high-demand jobs.
All right, lots of great information. Closing the Graduation Gap is the report just released from the Richard M. Fairbanks Foundation. Claire Fiddian-Green, as always, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Gary.
All right.